This is a short presentation on climate change and temperature rise. Currently, millions of Indians are experiencing a brutal heat wave that is throwing lives and livelihoods out of gear, and there is no relief in sight. This is shocking but not unpredicted. In the recent IPCC report, the report by Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, it is clearly mentioned that the frequency and intensity of extreme events like this will continue to increase. The report, which should have been the only attention of the whole world, came out in time when we are still coping with the pandemic and there is a war in Ukraine. This report has been termed as Red Code by the United Nations. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said the report to be an atlas of human suffering. I'm going to present few results from this report. This is a plot which shows the global temperature rise over time. Currently, the average global temperature has increased by 1.2 degrees Celsius above the pre-industrial era considered as the baseline. And with that increase only, we are experiencing the current extreme events. While 1 degree may not seem like much of a difference, it may be the difference between life and death for a substantial fractions of human population. In fact, this heat wave of 2022 may put millions at risk in India and Pakistan. This is a green picture of a morgue in Karachi, Pakistan, which shows that it had to bury 45 unclaimed bodies to make room for more victims during the intense heat wave of 2015. This catastrophic change is largely caused by human activities. In fact, if we see the change in temperature over time, the simulated models based on human activities can clearly replicate the observed changes compared to the simulations which only consider the natural phenomenon. There is a clear relationship between the rise in temperature with the cumulative carbon dioxide released. Now, CO2 is the most significant greenhouse gas that is released due to the burning of fossil fuels due to our everyday energy demand. Unfortunately, the global greenhouse gas emission is still on the rise. In fact, the emissions are at highest levels in human history. Emissions in 2019 were 12% higher than in 2010 and 54% higher than in 1990s. It says that we are not on track to limit warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. Let's see what it means. Has there been no climate policies, then the projected future emissions due to no climate policies could result in an increase of global average temperature between 4.1 to 4.8 degrees Celsius by the end of this century. But due to the current policies being in place, the rise could be between 2.8 to 3.2 degrees Celsius by 2100. Due to the pledges and the targets that were being put forward during the Paris Agreement and during COP26, the increase could be limited to 2.1 degrees Celsius. But it is the 1.5 degrees Celsius rise that is the desired pathway. Based on the IPCC assessments, there are clear benefits of keeping the warming below 1.5 degrees Celsius compared to 2 degrees or above. Every bit of warming matters, but limiting warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius is possible within the laws of chemistry and physics. And by limiting the planet's warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius by 2100, the hope is to trade off severe climate disruptions that could exacerbate conflicts and inequality worldwide. And to do that, the global greenhouse gas emissions should be reduced by 43 to 45% by 2030, so within 8 years. And we are clearly not on track for that. Unless there are immediate and deep emission reductions across all sectors, 1.5 degrees Celsius could be beyond reach. In fact, this plot shows that there is still an increase in global coal consumption, and coal is the most significant contributor of greenhouse gas emissions. In recent time, the increase has exacerbated. So the UN Secretary General says we are on fast track to climate disaster, and it could be that major cities could be underwater, there could be unprecedented heat waves, as we are seeing at the moment, terrifying storms, widespread water shortages, and extinction of million species of plants and animals. It is very clear that this is not a fiction or exaggeration. It is what science tells us will result from our current energy policies, because we are still dependent on coal and coal use is still increasing. High-emitting governments and corporations are not just turning a blind eye, they are adding fuel to the flames. They are choking our planet based on their vested interest and historic investments in fossil fuels when cheaper renewable solutions are clearly available. Climate scientists warn that we are already perilously close to tipping points that could lead to cascading and irreversible climate impacts. There has been a little hope in the report, which says that the window to keep 1.5 degrees Celsius in reach is still alive, even though closing at a very fast rate. It is important to mention that even at 1.5 degrees Celsius, there could be certain cities in South and Southeast Asia where the climate change will amplify due to urban heat island effect, and the impacts could be much more than what being presently seen. So 1.5 degrees Celsius is the minimum that we can do. So we have to act now. While leaders must lead, all of us can do our part. Choices made by every one of us now will make or break the commitment to 1.5 degrees Celsius. The coping options, as mentioned by the founder of Grantham Institute, Jeremy Grantham, we will have to change our complete attitude to everything we buy and the way we live our life. As an example, even though air conditioning is used to cope with high temperature, especially during heat waves, the air conditioning leads to more greenhouse gas emissions due to increased energy demand and leads to this vicious loop. In Beijing, during the heat wave of 2018, 50% of the power capacity was going to air conditioning. He says we must be more conscious of our resources. Every product have to be redesigned to be recyclable, and this is very important, easily repaired and much longer lived. And most importantly, as he says, we have to be frugal. We cannot live in the era where a dress is designed within 8 minutes, shipped in few days, and we buy a new dress in every month. Our choices will decide if we leave a livable place for our children or not. And this is important to understand. He gives an example to say that if we are on the track we are currently in, then by 2040 to 2050, certain parts of the world will be inhabitable. For example, in many parts of India, it will be fatal for us to be outside for more than 3 to 4 hours, even at 30 degrees Celsius, because of the rise in humidity. This is known as wet bulb temperature. Do we want to leave our children to be in a world where even going out of the house will be dangerous to their life? We have to decide, and every decision we take will help us to understand whether we leave a livable world for our coming generation or not. Thank you.